Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. In this one, I'm going to be introducing you to scriptable objects, what they do, how to use them, and why you should use them. Because many of you know from watching my channel or my being in my Discord server, I've been developing a game in Unity for about 6 or 7 months. And when it came up to the holidays, I've been very busy. I haven't got to work on it much, but I've been watching loads of YouTube and Unity conferences, which I'm going to link 2 of them to in the description that are very useful. And well, lectures, not conferences, and they teach about scriptable objects, and I'd heard of them before, and I'd seen like one video on them, but because I hadn't seen many videos, I just assumed they weren't that useful. But I've actually restarted my project from scratch. I have kept the old project to like copy certain bits of code across and keep the models and textures and all that lot, but in terms of code, mainly it's all completely rewritten to work with scriptable object system. And it's been a lifesaver. Like, everything I've done is so much better and easier, and just hear me out. So I'll show you what I've done with scriptable objects before we make a test thing here, and then in the upcoming videos on this I will show you different uses of them. So like how to make a key binding manager and how to make this, that, the other, inventory, I don't know, different things using key bindings and using scriptable objects, sorry, and then how to actually save your game data from scriptable objects in a super easy way, which I've like been working on. So I'll quickly show you my game. So here's like the test room for it. It's just a room with a save block thing. If I interact with that, it saves my game data, and then picking up items. And I'm currently working on the inventory system, like as we speak outside this video. The one thing I want to show you is the use of a scriptable object. So, or how it works. So if I go onto Google Images really quickly, I have this image which is from the Unity conference, the Unity lecture thing. I'm going to link you to these two: the game architecture with scriptable objects and the overthrowing the monobehavior tyranny. Now, if you know what monobehavior is, when you have a script in Unity, so let's just go to my scripts. If I go to like a random one, like this one, it's a monobehavior. And monobehavior just means this script sits on an object in the scene and it gets treated as if it's, well, basically an object in the scene. It derives from monobehavior, which is a Unity thing. As far as I know, it's Unity specific anyway. And then scriptable objects, the difference here, my scriptable object scripts, they derive from scriptable object, which defines how they work. And I will obviously go into making them. So I've got objects for game state, hotbar, interactable item, whatever, and they're so useful. So one good example of this right now is I have scriptable object. Now, after you've written the script, you make the actual object, because it's like an instance of a class. So if I search stats, I have a player movement stats. Here we go. And as you see, it has stats up here like movement speed, jump force, look sensitivity, whatever. And right now, instead of having values on my player's movement script for these like values that I tweak in the inspector, I have them on this object. So if I run now, you see this is a movement speed of 3, and if I up it to 30, as you can see, I'm very fast, and I actually just died there. But let's just set the player back to 0. Sorry, let's put him at 10. There we go. Obviously I've taken some fall damage because I spawned myself above the world. So where is the stats? Now, that's the actual stats. So these objects here that I'm showing you with these numbers and stuff, they aren't in the scene. They're in the actual... I just fell off again. They're in the actual assets for the game. So what that means is that rather than trying to get a component from another script where you read their information, you just have access to this object and you read from it. And one cool benefit of this is... I need to turn down the move speed so I don't fall off again. As you see here, when I try and interact with something, it says E to pick up. So it's like, you know, E is the interact key. But if I go into my key binding manager here, which is an object in the scene, I can change the key binding for the interact that I made. So if I change it to exclaim, it actually just says exclaim. So this updates live with me changing this. Obviously, if I want to get back to E, I have to find it again. The best thing about this is for balancing. So let's say I'm like, okay, the player's jump force 40. Maybe it's not about right. If I change it to 50, even though that's probably just way too much. And if I went out of the game, it would save that because it's changing the actual like files, the asset files. You're not changing something in the scene that gets undone afterwards because this is completely out of the scene. Obviously, this is really useful for, first of all, balancing because you don't have to remember all your changes and copy components across. The best thing about it in terms of, like, for example, player stats, that's really useful. Rather than having different objects in your scene have to get different components from different things, you just give it reference. If you look at my managers here, there's all the different managers that I have. as you see, different managers here. This one, the input manager, has reference to the key bindings object. The UI manager has reference to the player stats object. So as you see on this diagram, we'll have that instead of player HP, just think player stats. So there's the player stats object. It's a scriptable object. And the audio system might want to play audio differently if you're on lower health. So rather than trying to like search through the scene to grab reference of your player to get his health, you just speak to this object, simply. The health bar UI wants to know what to display, so it reads it from the player stats. The player needs to know whether it's dead or not, and so on and so forth. So there's so many good uses of this. Obviously, here's the other one that they showed, inventory. So here's your inventory. The player needs to know about his inventory. The NPC might want to know about the player's inventory. The equip screen will want to know about the player's inventory. And then with the player's inventory, you can save that inventory. Boom. That's quite simple. To be honest, that's like the logic behind it, and it's so useful. And I'm going to quickly, I'll link those in the description. I'm going to get into showing you how to do this for yourself simply. And then obviously, as I said, the upcoming videos will explain it further. So we're in our scene, and we're going to right click, create a new C# script. And for this one, we'll just make some simple things to display on screen. So we'll just put like, character, whatever. So this is going to be, this is just a complete, like, off the top of my head example of using it, to be honest, because there's no, you can use it for anything. That, like, if you're going to use it, you might as well use it for everything that you can, because it's so helpful. The only one thing to note is making an item, an inventory system, is more complicated than it seems if you want to have saving and loading. I've been working on it for the past like day or so. I've also been doing other stuff as well, but I'll explain that in my video on it. So don't go ahead and try and make an inventory system, because you'll get problems with the fact that when you change an object, it changes, well, the object. So if you have a health potion and you've set it up and then you change one bit on the health potion, all health potions will be changed. You might want that, but you probably don't, and I'll explain why and how to do different instances of stuff. But let's get into this. So here's our script, and we're going to change it to scriptable object. Now, this on its own won't really do anything. We want to be able to actually make it in the scene, like in our assets, sorry. So if you want to be able to make in the assets, you need to add a thing on the asset menu. So the asset menu is when you right click, create, and here's all the assets. We want to add our own. So we go to the code and we do inside square brackets. I'll zoom in a bit. We do create asset menu, and then it takes in 2 parameters, or technically 3 it says, but I've never used the third one. First of all, it takes in a file name, so file name equals, and we're going to call this character. That's just the default name when you create one of these, and then comma, and then menu name is what like file path it goes through to appear on the menu. So let's say, for example, if we just did character again and saved, let's go back to Unity. So once that's compiled, if we right click, you'll actually see that we have a new thing on the create menu called character. But let's say that you wanted to make it neater. Let's say you have like 100 different scriptable objects. You don't want a list of 100. You want to go into like, maybe you want to have a little folder on there for it. So it's like game objects slash, I don't know, slash characters. Slash character. This is just an example. It's more useful when you actually have different objects. So currently just says character, but if you let it compile, then it says, okay, we actually need the, oh no, it's still just applying it. There we go. Game objects, character, boom. Now here we've got a character object, so we'll just call it like test character. So this is just data, right? And it currently doesn't store any data, simply. So we're going to give it some data to store. So we're going to say this object has a public string, like, well, character name, and that's equal to like new character. So this is just a default, like that. And then we'll have a public string oh, so this is just me wanting sorry, to write character before the actual thing. You can do name description if you want. So we'll just put new description. I can't type description. And then we might also want to store some other things in the string, so we'll have like a public int of like, I don't know, character age. I don't know what the hell you want to store on them. We'll just start it up. We'll just declare it and do whatever. And what other kind of data types you might want? You might have a public bool of I don't even know what you might want to bull for a character, to be honest. Let's just not do that. We'll have an enum. Okay, so an enumerator, if you don't know, is like a list of states that something can be. So you have to be one of them, but you can be any of them, that kind of thing. I'll show you. So public enum, and what should we call it? Class. Maybe it's like a character as a class. So we'll call it class. And then we'll make all the different possible things, like classes that we can have. So let's just do quickly like mage, warrior, paladin, rogue, warlock, whatever. Let's say that. Now that on its own just says, okay, this exists, but it doesn't do anything. So let's now have a public class. Okay, I probably shouldn't have used class. It technically will work, but you don't want to use class because class already exists as a word. Let's just call it, it works, it's fine. Just probably think of better naming things. Yeah, like here it's telling me don't use class, use at class. I'll just change it to, like, spec. Even though that's technically not what it is, but, you know, it's a class spec, I don't know. And then we'll call this spec, and it's equal to spec dot, and then this is the default, so whatever you want the default to be. But by default it would go mage if I didn't put anything in because it's the first in the list. So let's say by default we'll just leave it. Okay, and now if we go back to Unity, we've got this data for an object, and normally you would do this in the game anyway. You would have it on an object like in its script, but in this it's so much better because let's say new character is you know, Bill, and you know, Bill is a fearsome warrior. Character age 20, not 270, 27, I don't know, 26. Warrior, okay? So now we've got that data on that character. And then the easiest thing about it is, okay, let's say I want to make a new character for our game with some other like info, like test character 2. Well, I think I put 3 there. Test character 2. And then what this one's called Bob. We got Bill and Bob. Bob is an average dude. He's 62 and he's a warlock. Okay, so whatever. We've got these like different kind of data on these characters. That's all well and good. You've got this data, but you want to display it somehow. Now, normally you would use it in your code for doing different things. Let's say I made a scriptable object for spell, right? So for a spell, and I would have the name of the spell, the description of the spell, how many how many mana points it's cost, the mana point cost, spell cost, whatever. And I would also have like element, like what element it is, so like fire, water, whatever, and so on. So that when you actually want to refer to a particular spell, you just say spell.element, and then you get the element or whatever. And it's just a much better way of storing stuff, in my opinion. Now let's just quickly display it on the UI somehow. So we'll just say UI panel, and we'll just add some fields to it. So we'll just say, well, we've got some text here. Let's go to the scene view. One sec, sorry. So text. Zoom out, and we'll just scale it up and say best fit. Why not? Okay, so this text is gonna be the like name. Oops. Yeah, this text is gonna be the name, and then we'll have move that down. Description. Move that down. What else do we store? Age. Spec. Well, actually, no. What we'll do is for description, we'll just say that has age in it too. For example, we'll do that, and then we'll actually the description could just be I'll say spec. And that's it, to be honest. Let's say we just have that, okay? Let me just put their x's to 0, just a neatness thing. Let's add a script onto this canvas called like character display. Okay, that didn't actually open for some reason. Okay, so in character display, we're going to have a public character. Now, this is just normal coding, you know, you have a, not that kind of character, called character. Whoopsie daisy. Okay, now we go back into Unity, and you'll see that it now wants a type of character. Now, normally what you would have to do is you'd have to drag in an object in the scene to be that character, but actually you can use scriptable objects. So test character 1, for example, and now we have to basically display it. So we need a public text. We need to have public text. We need to import, so using Unity engine.ui, and we want a public text, and we'll call it name, description, spec. Whoops, spec. It's not going to like that. Well, to be honest, we don't even need to call it name. We can just call it like character name. That'll do, just for the sake of this. And what we'll do is on the void start, we'll say we want to set character name equal to character. So we're referring to our object that we got. We want to set it equal to the character name. Character name dot text, because it's a text thing. Then we say character. Sorry, it's just description now. Description is equal to character dot description. Yeah, the text. Sorry, I need to remember. Keep doing text. So we're saying the character description plus, and then we'll say. Did I put full stops in the thing? This is just being a bit of a neat freak, to be honest. No, I didn't put full stops. Okay, so we'll just say full stop plus character dot character name plus space, and we'll say is plus character. Whoops, character dot age dot toString plus years old. There we go. That was a long string thing to do. You get what I mean, though. And then finally, we'll just say that the spec dot text equals spec colon plus, and then we'll say character dot spec dot toString. Let's have a go. We're going to press play now after it's done. Uh-oh. I didn't reference the text. Also, when you're doing this, you probably want to name the text objects better than just text, text1, text2. Like, this is just for the sake of the tutorial. This should work now. So, here we go. Bill. Bill is a fearsome warrior. Bill is 26 years old. Spec warrior. Okay? And then we're just going to take test character 2, and we're going to press play. Bob. Bob is an average dude. Bob is 60 years old. Spec warlock. You get what I mean. And then the coolest thing is, like, you might think that during the gameplay, like, you have other things that read from this, right? Like, for all you know, other things in the game might want to know what spec you are, and, like, because they probably will, what spec you are. They might want to know what age you are, and you can check that. And obviously, you could do this anyway, okay? What I'm trying to say is, this isn't, like, a breakthrough where, like, oh, you couldn't do this before, now you can. It's just a much better way of doing things, and it saves you so much effort when you need to, like, well, for example, do a character of a health system and you need multiple things accessing it. If you need variables that multiple different things need to access, have it in a scriptable object so it can read from it and put to it, because it is just so much better. There's only one limitation to scriptable objects. Okay, someone's probably going to find more, but there's only one real limitation, at least that I've come across, which is that scriptable objects, well, first of all, they don't have a void start, they have a void on enable. Which is basically the same thing, to be honest. And on disable, which is when the object gets disabled, obviously, and then on destroy if the object that it's on gets deleted or destroyed. There's no, there is on awake as well. Obviously, when the script's died, we don't have an update, so you can write functions, right? You can have public void blah de blah. You can have functions. You just can't have update functions. So you can have like coroutines, enumerators. You can have just normal functions. You can have functions that return values. The only thing you can't have is update. So what you will have to do is you'll have to have, if you want to have an update for something, you'll have to have it on an actual object in the scene. And the reason's because update is run every frame by an object in the scene, And because this object isn't in the scene, it doesn't get run every frame. It's just a data thing that like objects in the scene will read from this, run functions on this, get data back. It's just a little sits there and it does stuff and then it gets data back. So yeah, there's not much more I'll say this video. This video's got on a bit, but I hope this has helped you at least understand scriptable objects, and in the upcoming videos I'll show you how to use them for making such as things as like a keybind system, really simple, and other such things. The reason why I want to do a keybinding one is because I personally, when I looked up, could not find any good keybinding videos. They were all really bad, either old or bad, and they just didn't have really good methods for doing it. But this is such a simple method, and I don't see why people don't use this anyway. I'll explain it in my next video and I'll show that. I might just do it tomorrow, to be honest. But yeah, I hope you liked this video. If you did, then subscribe for more. Hopefully you stick around for the other scriptable object videos. Share this between other Unity friends, and if they haven't used scriptable objects, because this will honestly save a lot of pain. But yeah, there's not much else than that. Just join the Discord if you want to be part of the community. I highly recommend it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay tuned up to date. Apart from that, thanks for watching and goodbye.